Welcome to the Second Line Show. I'm Nola Nash. Let's let the good times roll. Hi, welcome to the Second Line Show. I am Nola Nash. I am your host today. And we have got a killer thriller show for you with some fantastic authors I am so excited to have on this show today. Super fun, ladies. We are going to have a blast. I just know it. We have got Ms. Hannah Mary McKinnon, Kimberly Belle, JT Ellison, and Hank Phillipi Ryan. So we've got some powerhouses in the house today. So please, guys, leave us a comment. Welcome to the show. Those of you who are on Novels and Latte, The Right Review, Nola's Second Line, and of course, watching us on Nola Nash Entertainment live on YouTube right now, and my page on Facebook as well. I know we've got folks coming in from all over. So please get those comments in the comment section for us, and we'll be happy to address some of those as we go along. So let's get things rolling. I'm going to turn things over to Hannah Mary McKinnon because she is right here next to me. And I'm going to let you introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your books, what you write, anything you want to say, favorite color. I don't care. The floor is yours.
Excellent. Well, my favorite color is blue because my sister told me. That's what she said, because she liked red. And I said, I like red. And she said, no, your favorite color is blue. And here we are years later. It's still the case. But I am also living in Canada, not Canadian, as most of you will detect from my rather different accent. I have the Canadian passport, but I also have a British and a Swiss one because I was born in England, grew up in Switzerland, married a Canadian, and collect passports as a part-time hobby, apparently. I am the author of 4 books. My first one was a rom-com called Time After Time, and I then very quickly switched to the dark side because it's so much more fun with The Neighbours, Her Secret Son, and this year's book, Sister Dear, which published in May. And that's me.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Kimberly, you are next to Hannah Mary on the next side there. Yeah, we're backwards. So you guys are like, yeah. I'm trying to get a big screen, I'm making it smaller. Yeah, you guys, where are we? It's all like weird and weird. We're at some kind of weird fun house. It's okay, we'll get there, I promise. All right, Kimberly, up to you.
Hi, I am Kimberly Belle. I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia, and I write domestic suspense. I have, 6 books out. I just turned in my 7th, so it'll be out next year. But my latest book is called Stranger in the Lake, and it came out this past summer. And I'd really like to get out of the house. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going really stir crazy. So I'm super excited to be here and actually have some interaction and talk to people and have a couple laughs.
Yes, people, live people who actually talk to you, that you're not like waiting on them to text you back.
My daughter is like, stop talking to me. I'm trying to sleep.
My dog does the same thing. I get the side eye, like, what are you doing? Like, why are you talking to me? Then you start to, expect him to answer. He doesn't answer. It's just sad. JT, my local Nashville friend over here. So come on, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So my name is JT Ellison, obviously. I write psychological thrillers, and because I'm 22 in now.
Wow.
The book that 22 published, the book that I am starting is my 25th. So that's, quite a few books. I forget how to write a book every single time. I have no idea what I'm doing when I sit down. It's like I am a debut every single time. So my latest book is called Good Girls Lie. It's set in an all-girls boarding school, high school. I went to an all-girls boarding college, and in Marchburg, Virginia, where a young girl named Ash Carlisle has just lost her parents and has come across the sea from Oxford to go to school at Good, Goode. And everything's going well until people start to die. And that's basically all my books. Things go well until people start to die.
I think that's a pretty good synopsis. I mean, just
all of our books.
There's your blurbs right there. It's just, this is how we describe the genre. Things are going well until people start to die. I love it. Now, JC, I have to tell you, my son, who's in college right now, he went to an all-boys boarding high school in Connecticut. And so that kind of speaks to me. But at the same time, he gave my mom one of your books for Christmas because it was set in Franklin, which is where we live. And so it was Franklin in Paris. And my mom loved being able to see, those familiar places and just, things around all of us. So gotta tell you, that was kind of a cool thing for him to actually at 21 think about what his grandmother would like, first of all, that she loves thrillers and crime shows and all that. She wanted to be a forensic pathologist, but at her age, she was told, girls don't do that. She's like, but so she just makes up for it by watching all of the shows and having her own son. My brother is a cold case detective in Nashville. So, she kind of lives vicariously through him now. But I got to tell you, that was kind of a neat moment for us when he actually thought enough to find a book that was the genre she would like.
Sweetheart.
In where we live. So that was like man moment for the boy. He's reached adulthood. He can successfully choose gifts thinking about others. So it was great.
Well, he'll never be able to summon anything better than my book. So
exactly. Exactly. All right. So Hank, I'm going to turn it on over to you now. Tell us about your stuff here.
Thank you. I love this. I wish we were all in New Orleans together. That would be kind of good. I went to an all women's college also. I think I wore the same thing for 2 years in a row because nobody cared. I remember I went to my 8 o'clock classes, German class, wearing my pajamas and a trench coat. And it just didn't matter. That's all.
Oh yeah.
You know this. You know this. I want you to.
I do. That's exactly it.
The comments are fabulous. They're completely fabulous. And I'm looking at everybody, Glennie and Nancy and everybody, and Leslie and Anissa and Leisha. We can't. If it says Facebook user, we don't know who you are. So put your name so we can welcome you all by name here. And I don't think we can type in it, can we? So,
we can actually. I can type in there. I don't know if you guys can, since I'm the one
running
the show here. But if you would like me to type something, just tell me what you want me to write.
No, that's right. You got to be the host of this show, right? You're the one to type. Anyway, I'm Hank Phillipi Ryan. I'm here in Boston. This is my office where I have written 12 and a half novels. I sent in the 13th one sort of on Monday. I am the investigative reporter for Channel 7 here in Boston, where I've won 37 Emmys for investigative reporting. You can see that behind me, and some awards for my crime fiction as well. Those are Agatha Teapots behind me and the Mary Higgins Clark Award on the show. So on my bad writing days, like JT, when I think I have no idea what I'm doing, I don't know how to do this, how did I ever do this? I look at those and I think, well, it has worked in the past. It hasn't, and maybe it will work again. But I'm really never quite sure. I mean, I think that's one of the secrets that it's hard to tell, that we have no idea what we're doing. So we would never say that. I write cat and mouse thrillers. My newest book, The First to Lie, I just happen to have 27,000 copies right here. My newest book, The First to Lie, is a cat and mouse thriller. No graphic sex, no graphic violence, no inappropriate language, just gaslighting, mind games, psychological manipulation, and twists and turns and surprises. So The First to Lie is two smart women facing off in a high-stakes psychological cat and mouse game to prove their truth about a devastating childhood betrayal. But which character is the cat and which character is the mouse? And that is The First to Lie.
Ooh, I love it. And that's going to lend very nicely to our game later.
Oh, I just like to say my books have sex and swearing, so
and crazy twist endings, apparently.
Apparently.
I saw your post earlier. I'm like, yeah. That is good.
I think that was a valid point to throw out there.
Okay, would you like that kind of thing?
There should be that in some books. I mean, we got to be able to have our choice here, right? Do we want the sex and swearing or do we not? now we've got something for everyone. That's sort of the whole point of the show, right?
Yeah.
So as you guys know, from those of you who've watched the Second Line show before, we do things a little differently when we're talking to our authors. I want to give them a chance to tell us what's going on with their writing, but at the same time, we tend to have weird conversations because this is why we're here. This is why we are the show that we are. So today we are talking about thriller writer side effects. Those weird things that happen to thriller writers. So what we're looking for are stories about things like these symptoms. Search history paranoia, because no one's search history is quite like a thriller writer's search history, except for maybe a romance writer's search history. They also suffer from this particular symptom. Perhaps being mistaken for an actual detective or worse, killer, because you know way too much about murder and stages of blood drying, those kinds of things. Perhaps being subject to awkward conversations about strangers' criminal relatives, because that could make a good book. You should use this. Or subject to hypothetical questions about good places to hide a body. So all of these things can be those side effects that you might suffer as a thriller writer. So ladies, what side effects do you have that you must endure as a thriller writer?
I'm betting we have all of the above.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was writing the book that comes out next year, You Will Remember Me, I was doing some research, and where I sit here, my husband has his desk just opposite mine. And I popped my head over the screen and I said, did you know that, and don't do this at home, boys and girls, please, but did you know that if you give somebody too much Benadryl, it can really mess with their head, with their memories and stuff? He said, a fictional someone, right? Said, oh yeah. And then the same evening, he's watching TV. I walk in, I mute the TV, sit down, and said, someone's working underneath a car with a jack. And I know nothing about cars apart from start, drive, park, that kind of stuff. And I said, but he's a car guy. I said, so if someone's working underneath a car and there's a jack, and could you bump it and have the car fall, and would it kill them? And he said, well, yeah, depending on the jack that you're using. And I said, ooh, tell me more. So he got a little bit worried. It's not quite the ice pick under the bed yet, but yeah, it's a bit dodgy. He did actually say, I'm a bit worried about you sometimes. So
far too much joy in those kinds of conversations. I love it. Oh, I love this comment. Someone should post the search history from their computer.
No.
We promise we won't report you.
Yeah, no, not going to happen.
Ever. As a matter of fact, I have an agreement with my husband that if I drive into a tree tomorrow and die, the first thing he does is go to my computer and clear my search history.
I clear mine pretty regularly. That's not something I need lingering around.
You do sort of poise your fingers over the keys and wonder, if I'm looking up how long does it take to drown in salt water?
I know.
And what I actually did, and I think, there's really no way to explain that. Why I was looking that up. It's funny, and also at the conversation, there's this sort of morphing of what normal is in a conversation. And I remember early on when I was writing The Other Woman, my husband and I were at dinner at a restaurant. Remember dinners in restaurants? You remember?
Hey.
So I was saying to Jonathan, well, you couldn't really push someone off a bridge because you couldn't really make sure. How would you know they would really die? And the waiter's standing there like, ma'am, would you like to order? And I said, it's a book. It's for a book. It's a book. And he says, You have to really be careful what you say. But our brains, we are really thinking about things that are unusual to think about. And one of the unusualnesses about it is that, you do have to get it right. I mean, if Hannah wanted to kill someone by putting them under a car and having the car fall on them, and if someone says, well, if it was, wouldn't the tires keep the body away from the person's body and they wouldn't be crushed? I mean, now I'm thinking about this.
That's what I was thinking about. I was actually like, oh, they must have taken the tires off.
That's why you have a creeper. See, if you have a creeper and someone's like, and if because they're up off the floor and they have a creeper and they slide underneath and then
So how many of us are going to have guys under cars?
Don't do this at home, people.
Don't knock the sound.
No, speaking of restaurants, that's anytime I start a book and it's going to be something, I know that the NSA is going to be watching what I'm doing. I type in, I am an author doing research for a book.
Do you?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
And where do you write that? Where do you
in my Google, I type that in and I hit return so that it registers, because they do like to.
Yeah, but bring him on. I mean, hello NSA, come over, see what I'm doing.
Yeah.
See how there was a wonderful cartoon in the newspaper where it was two people who look like us, just regular everyday people, opening the door to their apartment, and outside the apartment with two guys, in suits and earpieces and things on their lapel, and the FBI looking guys are saying, could you guys please say something interesting? We're bugging your apartment and it's so boring. That's what we would be like. The NSA would be, no, we can't do it anymore. So boring.
But
I'm sorry. I was going to say, speaking of restaurants, I had that horrible experience. I like to put my characters, I like visuals. I'm a very visual writer. So I will actually take and cut out people and put them in a book to look at so I can imagine who they are as my character. And I had to stop using our local society magazine because it's the perfect place to use. But I would go out to dinner and I'm like, oh my God, I killed your kid. This isn't good. And I had to resist the urge to go up and say, I'm so sorry for your loss.
Or you're
so like, oh, that's right.
So yeah, you're so guilty. I know you did it. With a
right.
That's great. That's right.
Like, I'm so sorry. Yeah. Kimberly, I totally cut you off. Kimberly, you go. I cut you off.
I was just going to say that Hank and JT made a really good point because, we do all these, type all these crazy things into Google because you do have to get it right. Because if you don't get it right, the first thing you're going to have is a bunch of emails in your inbox when the book comes out of readers who are like, well, that's not possible. So you do get called out on it by readers. It's important.
In the craziest of ways, I had, and it's not just the things like killing someone. I had a character come back into his office. Was a detective. Come back into his office after 4 hours of being at a murder scene, and he remembers that his turkey sandwich is on his desk that he's left for 4 hours, and he says in the book, oh, I don't think I can eat that now because the mayonnaise will go bad. And I got an email from a reader saying, it's not the mayonnaise that would go bad, it's the cookie that would go bad. And okay. You were listening tonight. Thank you, and I will never make that mistake again.
So true.
I mean, I write historical fiction, so most things have an element of history in them if they're not set way back. And it's the same general idea. There will be someone who will call me out if I am not getting those historical details right. So I always say that it's almost like writing the history first and then weaving in the fiction because it has to work with the setting and the time period and everything else. I can kill off people right and left, but if it's not going to work, I had to make a change in Crescent City Moon because I had a kerosene lamp hanging on the front of a carriage. They didn't have kerosene at the time. I had to change it to whale oil. Mm-hmm. So it's an oil lamp, but not a kerosene lamp because that didn't come until 20 years later. So things like that, I was like, little things like a kerosene lamp. They didn't have that, but somebody would have said, hey,
that.
You kind of don't you love that though? You all don't you love that it's part of our responsibility to get it right.
Yes.
I love it and hate it. It's really hard. It's a lot of pressure too to get it right. Don't you think? Yeah,
It is.
It is. It's a lot of pressure, but in the end, I feel like so many times when I'm researching these things, I feel like I have to get it right, and I start doing this. I start to uncover things that I can use in other books.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that doesn't work for this, but I know what I'm going to do with that though. I'm going to squirrel that away, and I make scrapbooks. It's weird. I know, it's like, what is this weird thing? But to keep track of all of the research that I've done and things that are specific to certain books, and because 2 of my series are within 20 years of each other in the same city, so just little changes, I keep them in these scrapbooks. And so it's like, okay, well, it doesn't work for this, but it can go in that scrapbook. And so I have to put it in certain places so that I can kind of keep it organized and know what I'm actually going to use. But I love those moments where you uncover something valuable that maybe doesn't work now, but it inspires something else that you do. And sometimes, then you end up down the rabbit hole and you're like, well, what was I researching? I don't even know anymore. I'm not even researching more stuff anymore. How did I get over here? It's like, wait a minute, back up. And so you got to dig yourself out. But I mean, it's a lot of fun to do the research, but you're right, it's a lot of work. Denise asked, and this is a good question, it kind of goes along with our side effects conversation. Have you ever had people react to your conversations in public that have overheard you talking about your story ideas? And I know, Hank, you told us about the waiter, but other things where you feel like you have to say, I'm a writer. It's like, have you guys anybody else had an experience like that?
Yeah. So same thing. It was in a restaurant, and I am discussing with my husband. He's actually really good at helping me figure out like the really sneaky how to steal money kind of stuff, how to rob a bank kind of stuff.
That's good in a restaurant.
He's never done that. Let's hope he's never done that. No. But he's really good at helping me work through that. And so we'll be sitting at dinner and talking about these crazy things about like embezzling money from a company or whatever. And we've gotten a lot of side eyes.
That's funny. The money conversation anywhere in a store, a restaurant, a place of business, that could be a really weird one to have.
But it works the other way too, that we can hear something and totally take the book. I was on Amtrak from Boston to New York. Remember trains? I couldn't get into the quiet car, which I craved. So I was sitting in the loud car, and in front of me was a woman who was talking on her phone so loudly, and it was so annoying. And I completely could hear her entire conversation, and it was so frustrating until it got really interesting. I mean, she was really plotting the demise of one of her coworkers. I don't think she was planning to kill her, but she was certainly planning to get rid of her. They were talking about telling stories about her and planting emails about her and completely manipulating her life. And she was so straightforward about it that sitting behind her, I figured out where she worked and who she was. I'm on my computer looking her up. Who she was and what her name was. And it crossed my mind to warn the person that she was talking about, to actually email her. I could find her easily. And so I didn't, but that turned out to be my story in the Jeffrey Deaver anthology, Nothing Good Happens After Midnight, is completely based on that. It's called All Aboard, based on that one train eavesdropping incident. It got so funny that when the announcements came on over the public address system in the train, I started thinking, be quiet, I need to hear her.
It's like, stop talking. Or could you hold that thought for just a second? I used to live by an airport, like in the flight path, like landing path, like quarter mile from the runways. And that was kind of our thing when we were kids and we were on the phone. Just like, hang on, plane, wait. So it's like then, it's kind of the same idea. Like, just stop talking for just a minute. I don't want to miss anything while loudmouth is going on. I've had a conversation. I was actually telling my mom about some research that I'm doing for a totally separate project, and I'm actually going down to New Orleans in just a few weeks to go do some more research on this. But she kind of gave me the idea based on something that she had seen. She's like, you need to look into this. And so I was telling her the rest of my research, and we're in this little bitty cafe. We're down on the square in Columbia. JT, you probably kind of know where I'm talking about, that cafe down there. And we're just sitting in the window in this kind of little nook down there, restaurants, remember those kind of things, like, oh. And I had a book signing that was in the bookshop in the same square. And so we're just kind of killing time. And I'm telling her about my research, and it's about some things that went on in New Orleans along the plantations on the river. And as I'm talking, I see this lady kind of next to me start to kind of inch just a little bit. And so she's inching closer. And I'm like, okay, but I'm like still talking. And then I noticed the couple that was sitting behind my mom stopped talking, and they're leaning in. The lady that was sitting next to me finally said, "Are you a history teacher?" And I said, "No, I'm a writer." And she said, "Man, that's too bad, because your history students would have been really lucky, because that's an amazing, is that real?" And I said, "Yeah." And then the people sitting behind my mom said, "We're from New Orleans, so listen, we didn't know this. Can you go back?" And so they pulled up, all these people, total strangers, pulled up at the table, because the girl that was sitting there, her husband's from Louisiana. They were both from New Orleans. None of them had ever heard about this, because it was just history that was intentionally buried. And so I'm telling this story. They had never heard about the place, they were very familiar with. And so it was like this really kind of cool moment of getting to tell the story to these people. I ended up, but they couldn't stay for the book signing. They all walked down to my car, and where I parked it on the square in Columbia, and they bought books out of the trunk of my car.
That's great.
You're like, okay, if you're going to tell stories like this, I need your book. It was hilarious. Like that's the kind of just random things that happen as a writer, just talking in public. But I think I get really
always have books in the trunk of the car.
Yes, always have a book. And I only had it because I was getting ready to go to that book signing down at Duck River Books in Columbia, which is a precious, precious bookstore. Local folks, if you ever get a chance to go down there, support that local bookstore. It is charming. It's so cute. But it was really funny. And like my mom said, she said, you get really loud when you get really excited about stuff. And I said, yeah, but I sold 2 books. So maybe I should, make sure I'm not talking about, where to hide a body and all those other things really loudly. I don't want to get too excited about that. That would be really bad. So awkward conversation. So you go to a party. People find out you write thrillers. Do they have odd questions for you? Do they want to not talk about your work? Parties when we used to have them like in real life. Or as the night goes on, they have a few more glasses of wine. Do the questions get stranger? How does that happen for you?
Mine's more people want me to put them in the book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or they
I would be a great character for X. I'm like, okay. Like, you can split the royalties with me. Oh yeah, that's how it works.
Yes.
Hate to break it to you.
Exactly. I don't get that, because everybody in my books are like old and dead. That's the historical fiction. I don't get that as much, but I think that would be a really funny. People always say, "Oh, you should write a book about this. You should write a book about this." And I'm going,
Sure.
Have you ever read my books? Because that's not what I write. They find out you're an author, but they don't really quite understand the genre part. It's like, I don't write everything. This is kind of my thing. Has anybody ever said, why don't you ever write anything funny?
I find people have been very receptive. So in my former life, I used to work in IT recruitment, and people would say, "Oh, so what do you do?" Which has to be one of the most boring questions ever. What do you do for fun is far more interesting, as long as you do something interesting for fun, of course. But so I'd say, "Yeah, I work in IT recruitment." They go, But now, when I say, "What do you do?" "Oh, I'm an author." "Oh, really? Oh, so what do you write in this?" And so I find people are really, really interested and receptive, and I think if I say enthralled, it might be a bit of an exaggeration and put myself way too high on a pedestal. So I'm not going to say that. But they're very receptive to it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that too? Or?
Yeah, I agree with that. And I have had people who've said, "Oh, you should write my story," and then they'll tell me some story. And most of the time, your stories are the most interesting to you. So I would have to do a lot of work to make it into a fictional story, I guess. But I have had one person who, a friend of mine, who said, we were talking about sex in books earlier. She's like, "You don't have enough sex in your books." I'm not sure it's really the genre, but okay.
My first one, the rom-com, my mum read it and she said, "This might surprise you, Hannah, but I don't think you have enough swearing in this book."
From your mom?
Yeah, from my mom, yeah. Awesome.
That's hilarious. I think that thriller writers have got to find the minutia interesting too, because everything, like interesting little things, can be like a clue to something. Do you find yourself noticing details probably more than most people would? I mean, you start to kind of like the way that somebody walks and what does that mean about them? What's that backstory? What's going on with them? Maybe a handbag that they're carrying heavier than it should be. What's in the handbag?
You're good. You're good.
Those things. I mean, I grew up with my mom who wanted to be she watches all the shows. So and my brother, so we start to think that way, it's like, okay, so, and I was in theater for a long time. And so a whole lot of stuff was watching people because, for different characters and things. And I think that's been kind of carried over into writing. I start to look at people like, the gait, the way that they're looking at another person that they're with. And it's like, okay, that's a forced smile. There's something behind that. And, what is this public persona? And then what is really going on with these people? They're walking through the mall. They're not getting along. Why? What's going on? Where might this go? I don't know if it's just from character development. That's the kind of thing that I did as a theater kid growing up. But as a writer, do you find yourself kind of noticing those things and go, "Oh, I could use that for this. That would be a really good way to get that plot point going," just by watching the people that are kind of, while you're out and about, which I know we don't get to do much anymore, but did you find yourself doing that with those little details?
We're all taking notes on what you said. And also, the romance writers are wonderful at characterization. I mean, they really understand how important it is to have a real character. As a reporter, I'm lucky too that I get stories there. I get a lot of tips, news tips and calls and things. People send me emails and send me letters about things that might not be good news stories, but they are good fictional stories. So when I'm at work and get one of those letters, I think, okay, not a news story, but for my book. One woman actually called me and said that I'll tell this as fast as I can, her niece had gotten a call from the adoption agency where she grew up, asking if she wanted to meet her birth mother. And when she met this woman, they took one look at each other and realized that they weren't mother and daughter, biological mother and daughter. And she said to me on the phone, "Hank, can you believe it? They sent that woman the wrong girl." And I thought, oh, let me just hang up with you right now, because you just gave me the idea for my next book. And that turned out to be the wrong girl. And it did happen. It was a real life story that did happen. It was just some clerical error and not a big deal. But of course, in the book, it turned out to be a huge turning point. And Nola, what you're saying, the thing that made the story work was that back in the time that she was adopted in this closed adoption, the paperwork for adoption was not on a computer. It was on a form, with 27 carbon copies. Everybody know carbon copies, please?
Oh, yeah.
And so the pink copy was the one that the family got, and that would be the lowest one, the one that was blurry and terrible, and that the ink never went through. And that was the crux of what happened in this mistake. So I thought, okay, I just might not have thought of that other than that little nugget, which was the pivot of the story.
So how often does that happen to all of you? I mean, and where do you kind of morally, I guess, kind of balance using other people's lives, and kind of how do you change it? How do you make sure that you're not putting someone else's life and tragedy on display? Which I guess kind of is going to go back, JT, to the story that we're going to tell here in a little bit. So how do you kind of balance that and make sure that you're not so close to the truth that somebody it might become kind of almost traumatic for somebody who reads their life on display for you? Kind of like that little nugget of a story kind of became something else. How do you balance that, I guess, is the best way I can say that.
Two of my books, Her Secret Son, came from a news report, but I changed the characters around the gender, the age, and the situation. And of course, I built an entire story around that. And with Sister Dear, which is two half sisters who don't know that the other one exists, came from a news report, a news segment I heard on the radio about a woman who'd found a ring on at a playground, a wedding ring or something, and she was trying to find the owner through social media, through Twitter. And this is where the thriller brain kicked in, I think, because your average person will go, "Oh, that's such a nice story. That's really nice." End of story. And I thought, oh, that's such a nice story. But ooh, what if she finds the owner and the owner has such a much better life than she does, and then she starts stalking them and things derail. And that's not exactly what happens in Sister Dear, but there is a ring, and it is a pivotal scene. So I think for me, it's taking these things that I hear or observe, and then building another story and consequences and death, I guess, because it's thrillers, around it that are not the same as what happened in real life. So it's really just using it as a starting point, and then building the rest around.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The real Wrong Girl was a clerical error. In My Wrong Girl, it's a completely different thing. But your point is well taken, Nola, that, I think that our books they are fiction, even if they start with that little gem of an idea. The ripple effect of it is so completely different that nobody would ever recognize their story in our books. I just think it's just so deeply fiction and so deeply changed and so deeply unique that I think about it and I wonder about it, and then I make sure it doesn't happen.
Yeah. Have you ever had a story that you've used someone's story and said, can I put this in the book? Can I use that? Kimberly's like, yes. You.
It's easier when it happens when you can choose something that you overhear from a stranger. But I do have one of my dearest friends. She divorced her husband kind of out of the blue for me, and all her friends. But it turns out that she was being abused, and she hadn't told anyone. And she said to me, like, the next day, really, she said, "You have to write my story. You have to write my story." And it took me a number of years to get to a place where I was like, okay, well, maybe I could use your story in one of my stories. It was like 2 or 3 books later. And I used her story, very similar, but with her permission, not just her permission, but with her encouragement. And used it as one of my characters' backstories. And then I thought that was kind of it. That was 3 days missing. And then I sat down to write my next book, and it also was about domestic abuse, and it took it to a totally different level, and had really nothing to do with her story, but it was definitely that seed of a story, and her in my ear saying, you have to tell my story, because if it helps even one person, like, take back their power, realize what's happening to them. If it helps even one person, then it's worth telling. So she really encouraged me, and that's where Dear Wife came from. But I think if you look back at those 2 stories, and people who don't know her that well, who kind of know her, what she shows to the world, they wouldn't recognize her from those 2 stories. But the people who really know her and who know me and know our friendship definitely know where those two stories came from.
I think that's a really special tribute to her too, and what she went through to be able to turn that story into, especially with her encouragement, and probably very therapeutic for her too. Kind of that, if my story can go out and help someone else, then what I went through, it's not going to heal, it's not going to take it away, but in some little bitty way, it's validating. And I mean, what a special gift you gave her. That's amazing.
Oh, thank you. And it was really her gift to me. And you said therapeutic for her. It was really therapeutic for me because I got to make her husband like the evil mustache twirling villain. And, I kind of got to give her the ending that I thought she deserved. So, yeah, it was good for both of us.
I love that. JT, what about you?
I've one of my buddies, Ariel Lahan, says observation is my superpower. And that's very, very true because, we're just professional eavesdroppers, right? Anything anybody's talking about, I'm tuned in. I feel so bad. Like I'm out to dinner with my husband and I'm talking to him and I'm looking at him and I'm listening to them because something they've said is just, but I'm very careful about putting stories that I hear into the work. Judas Kiss is the closest I've ever gotten to having a genuine, real story that I used, that I lifted the circumstance and the situation. And it was a young mother who had been murdered in her home and her little girl was there in the house. And when the police arrived, there were little bloody footprints all over the house. And it tore me up. And one of my beta readers said, you can't do this. You're real. And I'm like, well, it's a real case. And then I started thinking, oh my God, what if her mother picks up this book and reads it and recognizes her daughter's murder in my book? Wow. And so that's the last time I've ever tread anywhere near reality with this. It's what Hank says. It's that germ of an idea and you take it and you roll it around. And you roll it around a little more, and then you pull it apart and you put it back together, and it becomes something totally different. And that's really for me the only safe way to lift from the real world and put things in. And they do once they get attached to your amygdala and you start doing your own kind of tap dance on them. They do change. They have their own little scenarios that they create.
Well, the characters that you're creating or that have created themselves for you do different things and react different ways. And so the story takes off a different way. If you're lucky, you can hardly stop it from taking off a different way. You don't want it to, but because you have interesting people who want something, this is a different thing.
Right.
I think that is a perfect explanation for something that I think a lot of people, and we're kind of making light of the party conversation and those weird things, but I think those are probably things that a lot of readers have in their head is how close to the truth is this? Where do these ideas come from? And, if it is true, how does that impact, kind of that chain of events and the ripple of people, the 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon thing, what if somebody related to this actually picks it up and is kind of taken aback by that? And so I think that's a great explanation and something that probably a lot of readers have wondered. And so it's great to have all of those different scenarios kind of explained to the reading public. I love it. So we're going to kind of tread that water just a little bit longer here as we kind of go on the edge of truth and those things that can often become where fiction and truth cross paths. And we're going to kind of verge just a little bit into our New Orleans mystery and history. And we're going to do this a little different. Usually this is me telling you something about New Orleans, but I'm actually going to toss to JT Ellison here first because she's got a fantastic story that she kind of sent to me, and I was like, oh, please tell that story on the show. I was in here and like begging, like you had no idea how much I was like pulling back, but that begging didn't sound pathetic when I wanted you to actually tell that story. So I'm going to toss to JT here. She's going to tell you guys the story, and then I'm going to piggyback on it, and you'll see why here in just a second. So JT, I'm going to toss to you now. Tell us your story.
She's going to piggyback onto what freaked me out.
Yes.
So my husband and I have a long, storied history with New Orleans. It was our first overnight date. It was a date. We weren't married. So we have, we had gone to New Orleans. He had suggested we stay in this great hotel, and it was really fun. And we went up and down Bourbon Street, and it was really great. And there was this place that he wanted to take me called Dungeon. But the first trip, we just couldn't make the timing happen and everything. So the second time we went back, we were engaged now, so it was okay. We went to
Hannah's books now. She's the one with all the sex. Right? Be careful.
Here's the sex part, people. Sorry. Oh my God, what am I doing? Okay, so we're at this restaurant.
I can't hear you.
My parents are not watching this. It's all good. So we're at this restaurant, and our bartender, our waiter was really cool, and he was talking to us all night long. We had a blast. We had a couple hurricanes, and we're like, all right, well, it's almost midnight, and at midnight, the Dungeon opens, and that's where we're going to go. So, he was like, oh, okay. And he gave us directions from the restaurant down to the Dungeon, paid our bill, stumble off into the night, go down, go to the door to the Dungeon. Now it's 1 o'clock at this point, right? So this place opens at midnight. It doesn't open until midnight. It's a very famous vampire bar.
Yep.
Why my husband wants to take me there. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this place right here looks like a place to be hanging out, JT. It really does.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I wanted to go there and go, just Anne Rice was one of my heroes. Are you kidding? Of course I want to go to a vampire bar in New Orleans. So, but the door was locked. It's 1 a.m. We're like, what's going on? Knock on the door and nobody comes. Like, this is so weird. And then the waiter appeared. And when I say appeared, it was just us on the street. There was nobody else there, completely silent. We hear no footsteps. He literally appears and he says, get back up on Bourbon Street. They will eat you alive. And we're like looking at each other. And as we're looking at each other, he disappears.
No.
Poof.
No.
Poof, gone.
No.
We got back up on Bourbon Street. We got back to our hotel. We put a chair under the door, like that's going to stop, ghosts or vampires. But, we wigged out. It was really, really freaky. We went back to the Dungeon later on another trip, and I went in there, and I'm telling you, if there was ever evil in the world, it is in that place. It creeped me out. I mean, my radar is a little high on this stuff anyway, but I mean, it was freaky. So I'm telling Nola this, and here's what she tells me. Take it away.
Yes. So my love of the macabre in New Orleans it runs very, very deep. And of course, it's what, I draw my inspiration for all of the books that I write from that. So she sends me this, and I'm going, oh my God, I know that place. And I know why he said that to you. And so I send her the news story. There actually was something that happened at the Dungeon many years ago, and it began at the Dungeon. It did not end at the Dungeon. You'll hear about it on some ghost tours, and this is where the fact and fiction blur. They use the wrong name and they kind of gloss over some of the details, but this is a true story. On July 19th of 2003, a young man named Sean Johnson from Atlanta, Georgia, was attending a Microsoft convention in New Orleans. And he went to the Dungeon and was approached by a group there. And of course, everybody at the Dungeon, they're dressed in their vampire garb. And the story that's told is that he was with 3 other people. And they were, one young woman was wearing like a wedding dress with blood all over it. And, the kind of the whole vampire vibe thing going on, because the bar is allegedly owned by a self-professed vampire. And so the vampire lore is very, very deep there. But Sean leaves the bar in the very early hours of July 19th, and he leaves the dungeon with a group of people. Security footage at his hotel sees him come into the hotel at about 6 a.m. with 4 people, 2 men, 2 women. And he goes in, and they're all kind of dressed in what the police termed goth style. At 12:30, that same day, so it's 6 a.m., then 12:30 afternoon, the maid finds him in the hotel. Sean was beaten, bludgeoned over the head with a champagne bottle, and drowned in the hot tub. The legend goes, the robbery is what the police have said, but other people kind of, in the know, and as word starts to spread, that it was a ritualistic killing. And the story that you'll hear is that the people who murdered Sean were drinking his blood from Dixie cups.
Ew.
So they will eat you alive is not just that bar is going to be too much for you, honey. That's a warning. And so 4 people were arrested. 4 people were charged or arrested in the murder of Sean Johnson. Chris Lane, Benjamin Anthony, Carla Fry, and a woman named Kat, who cooperated with the police and was never charged. Apparently she had some connections that got her out of that. Everyone was indeed charged. Chris Mitchell Lane confessed to kind of ringleading the entire thing. He ended up dying in prison, but that was someone's story. And unfortunately, you start to look at that, that is a really creepy story, but at the same time, it was someone's life, and he's got family out there. And so, their family member is now kind of a legend on a ghost story. Now they've changed his name, they've changed some details about his story, but it is very interesting how those paths tend to cross. And so when JT told me that story, I'm like, I know how he said that to you. They will eat you alive. They absolutely will.
But how did the waiter get there? Did you go back and find the waiter? Did you ever see? I mean, that happened.
He literally appeared and he literally disappeared. And this wasn't just me. My husband's with me. My husband is like the most grounded person. I'm a big old flake. He is the most grounded person in the world. And I mean, he was just like, and we're out of here. We are out of here.
The very first thing that gave it away was that you told me that the story as I'm reading it was that there was no one around.
No,
because
there's nobody. It was
in that area. There should be people. So it was almost like this little rift opened up where you guys were. And I write paranormal. I mean, that's what I do. If I didn't believe it a little bit, I couldn't write it convincingly. So I'm sitting here, I'm along for the ride with you. And I'm going, see that waiter who was looking out for you. He absolutely showed up at the right time. I'm totally down with this. But I mean, it is, I really am. But it's really interesting.
Idea. That's very cool.
Yeah, it's
that's a very cool way to.
There should have been people that should have been open. The dungeon doesn't close, on a regular night. I mean, it opens every night at midnight. So that is, it's famous. They pack that bar. So for that to be closed, for you not to be able to get in at 1 a.m. and the bar opens at midnight and there to be no one around between Bourbon and Toulouse, there should have been people. And I mean, come on. New Orleans is like New York. You don't go to bed at midnight. The people are up and down that street all night long. So yeah, as I'm reading that, I'm going, ooh, okay. So this is a rift. This is where, so I like the paranormal brain, kind of like y'all's thriller brain starts kicking in. My paranormal brain's kicking in, but I'm also going, I've heard the story. I know the story. Oh my God, wait, there's something that's actually legitimate that set that waiter off. So
no. So you go back to the restaurant, JT. And the restaurant doesn't exist anymore.
Oh no, it was Pat O'Brien.
Or they say
it was Pat O'Brien.
That waiter hasn't worked here for years.
Yes, the waiter hasn't. He died back in 1983.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Exactly. I finally
who gets the story? Who's writing that story?
I know somebody needs to write that. Go for it, JT. Totally
I'm stealing it.
Go for it. I got it.
Twilight
honey. I gift it to you. It is my gift to you, the story of the dungeon. I mean, you had the experience. You deserve it. But I'm telling you, there are more dead people walking the streets in New Orleans than there are the living. I mean, at least it's equal. But, you know, over 300 years of people who've died off in that city, and many of them not willingly. So I think that you probably have good company wherever you're going. You're lucky that that person was warning you, not enticing
Was
you.
watching out for us, right? Instead of saying, hey, why don't we go on in, you know, slipping something in our drinks or something.
I have a key. I have a key, or I have the password, or I know the secret knock. You know,
Exactly.
Yeah, he could have led us the wrong way, and he really saved our bacon. It was creepy.
You must have.
I'm gonna have bad. Somebody just posted. I think I'm gonna dream about this tonight. I'm like, yeah, me too. Me too. You might want to set your wards before you go to sleep tonight.
Well, somebody posted earlier a question about how do you turn your brains off, and you know, to not think about this stuff. And it's not always easy. I mean, if I'm researching, you know, ways people can, you know, horrible ways people could die in the 1830s. I mean, it's no different than researching horrible ways people could die today. I mean, it does kind of lurk in the back of your mind for a while. You have some pretty interesting dreams, but oh yeah, that is a truly gruesome story to be a true story, and then to have that kind of lingering effect of it in the city itself. I mean, I think that there's a lot of encounters as you talk to people that have been to New Orleans and find those types of things, and they don't always know the connection to the truth that might have actually been a part of that. So I'm kind of glad that we got those two stories together, that we each had a part of it to kind of get the whole picture there, which is kind of fun. All right, so really quickly, we were going to do a little bit of two truths and a lie. So for those of you who don't know what two truths and a lie are, this is our Louisiana lagniappe. Lagniappe meaning a little something extra. By the time we do a few more episodes of this show, guys, you're going to know what lagniappe means. It's like the 13th donut in a baker's dozen. So it's a little something extra. So here's our little something extra. Two truths and a lie. If you don't know how it works, here's how it works. We're going to give three statements about ourselves. Two of them are true. One of them is a lie. And then we get to figure out what the lie is. And since these people write thriller books where they are lying for a living, they ought to be pretty good at this. All right, who wants to go first? Any volunteers, or do I have to victim you like I tell my students?
I'll go first. All right,
so Hannah, tell us your two truths and a lie, but don't tell us which one is which.
Okay. While scuba diving in Corsica, I came close to running out of air. This scar, which you can't see very well, this is number 2. This scar was caused by a ski pole when I was skiing, fell and whacked my head on it and went and bled out everywhere. And the third one, I bungee jumped out of a cable car in Switzerland, and it was awesome.
Oh my gosh. All right. So we've got, commenters. You can leave your comments on which one you think the lie is as well as we try to figure it out. So, all right. So the first one, scuba diving, I almost ran out of air.
Mm-hmm.
Massive gash on the forehead with a ski pole.
Ski pole, my own, I should say. Yes.
Your own ski pole. And I can imagine that was pretty gruesome if you were actually on the snow because, blood, white snow, not pretty.
No.
And bungee jumping in Switzerland.
From a cable car.
Yeah. From a cable car in Switzerland.
Yeah.
I've seen this, and that is, okay. Look, we've got comments popping in with people's answers. So we've got bungee jumping, no air, cable car. We've seen torn between the scuba diving and the bungee jump. Now, I know that you lived in Switzerland. So if I kind of take that in there, then maybe that one is true, or maybe you've seen people do this. And so it makes an easy lie because you're going, I've seen it, I wouldn't do it.
A moving cable car?
No, no, it goes halfway up and then they stop it and then you jump.
You jump. I don't do
it. Yeah.
Okay,
that's your truth, sister. You are nuts.
All right, so now we're doing psychological evaluations next.
Things are very outdoorsy.
They are outdoorsy.
Yeah. That's right.
All right, I don't know. I'm stumped on this one. I'm gonna go with the cable car because I think it's something you've seen but wouldn't do, or maybe wanted to do but haven't. Although running out of air would be frightening. This is why I don't scuba dive. I don't know. I'm gonna go with the crowd here and do the bungee jumping out of the cable car.
Is the
All right.
lie?
Yeah, what do you guys think?
Oh, sorry. Go on.
I think it's
I think the bungee
scuba
jumping.
diving.
Okay.
Ah.
Okay.
Say the middle one. You know, the
So
ski pole.
Split the difference.
The ski pole accident seems like the most likely to have happened. That's the least weird. So I think that's not true.
So, okay. Okay.
Somebody.
So the lie is the cable car. I did not jump out of a cable car. I considered it, but there was an incident with a young American man where they got the wrong length of the bungee cable and
No.
and he didn't bounce. So
Oh,
No.
yeah.
that's good. Okay.
So
Well-
no. But the scuba diving was true. That was freaky, and the ski pole was not fun. So yeah. But no, I did not bungee jump out of a cable car. Are you crazy?
All right. So we can put the psychological evaluation on hold.
Yeah.
maybe a few more adventures in, we'll bring that one back up again.
Sure.
All right, Kimberly, what do you have?
So I wrote mine down, and this is actually the last one on my list, but now I'm going to start with it after Hannah's story. For my 50th birthday, I jumped out of an airplane. Number 2, I speak Dutch like a native. And number 3, I was on my middle school bowling team.
Bowling.
Bowling team. Now the Dutch could be because your
The
husband.
Dutch.
Well, we
The
know.
Dutch
Yeah, the Dutch is true. We know that. We know this.
That's a tough language, though.
No, it's true. I can vouch for that. It's
All
true.
right,
I know. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. The
So we're
50,
doing like I tell my students, we're going to start eliminating choices.
so jumping out of a plane, eh?
You're not.
I think you did that.
For my 50th.
Yeah,
I think you did that.
50. I don't think you're 50. I
What
think
was
I
the
do.
other one?
I think
The
it's the
other
bowling is the lie.
Middle school bowling team.
Bowling's too tame for you. That's just
Yeah, I'm gonna think you were on a team in middle school, but it wasn't bowling.
I don't know, cheerleading or
Cheerleading.
gymnastics or pole vaulting or something. I'm going to
Yeah.
go with bowling's the lie.
I'm
Me
going
too.
with that too. Hank, what do you think?
I don't think she's 50. She can't possibly
Oh, I'm for sure.
do anything on her 50.
That for granted. That's actually that's a good point. She's been lying about her 50.
So I think the parachuting or jumping out of the airplane is not true.
All right, Kimberly, what is it?
It's the airplane. It's the
Oh.
lie. No,
Somebody's got to jump out of something.
I'm way too chicken. My daughter actually jumped out of an airplane, and she shows me the pictures and the videos, and it literally makes me sick to my stomach. I can't even.
Why jump out of a perfectly good airplane?
Right? That's what I said.
I mean, the fact that it's in the air is miracle enough. Why do you need to take those chances? It's like a bumblebee. How does that thing actually up in the air? Oh my gosh. All right, JT, what you got?
Okay. I spend an evening singing Frank Sinatra songs with a big band at a Christmas party.
Oh.
I've purged all of the books from my house. And I was once stopped at the Swiss border by Interpol.
Oh. Those are good.
Why would you purge all of your books? That's-
Yeah.
Because
Let
she's,
a writer actually purge all of her books.
she's moving.
Ah.
And so
Yeah, 'cause I totally see you singing Frank Sinatra.
totally.
That I would totally buy.
Yeah.
That
Totally.
I buy. I can
So,
see you doing that.
so Interpol, we think? And the Swiss.
Because that's so unlikely that it's probably true.
I like the way Hank thinks. I'm going with Interpol. I'm just going to make a leap.
I'm going to go with Frank Sinatra. You're so convincing. I don't know.
Diane Robinson thinks that you went all Marie Kondo on us and purged all your books. So we have people who are actually thinking you could do that.
I can't even imagine that.
I know.
It's so outrageous that makes me think maybe that's the truth.
I'm looking at her background to see if there are any.
Me too.
It's like maybe I need to make her bigger for a second.
No, my head's big enough right now. Trust me.
Faster and see. Oh, Hank, what did you decide?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'm afraid. Yes, I can totally see you singing Frank Sinatra songs. I mean, and probably beautifully. You probably rocked it. And so, but Interpol, I believe that. So, I guess I'd have to go with the books. Maybe it's a trick that you purged everything out of one house and put it in the other house.
Yeah. I'm going with the book.
What is it?
The lie is that I sang Frank's I Am Tone Deaf. Oh my God. I can't sing to save my life.
Yeah,
You do not want
hear
me
that
to
story.
sing. It's a bad thing. It's a bad, bad, bad thing. So yeah, I
You're
purged
doing
all of
that
my
now.
books because I am moving, and the books, all 56 boxes of them, are in a pod right now. It's giving me hives. And we got stopped crossing the Swiss border. They were looking for somebody who apparently looked very similar to my husband. When they took our passports, they detained us for a little while, and then we actually got pulled over again in Italy. The Carabinieri came as we were driving around, and my cousin was driving. He said, "Just don't say anything. Don't talk." Because they don't mess around. So yeah, somebody was on the loose that Interpol was looking for that looks like my husband. So
No, there's a seed for a book.
Yeah, definitely.
Intrigue in the Alps. That could work.
but
All
thanks
right.
for the compliment. You think I could sing? That's lovely.
No, you
That
don't.
was actually Randy. Randy sang with the big band. He's a great singer. It wasn't me.
I could totally see you doing that. I mean, getting up there and
A couple of cocktails in you, and you're like, give me the
I've
mic.
never even done karaoke.
I mean, I
come on, JT. We're gonna take her down to one of the bars on Broadway. We're gonna get you drinks in you, and we're gonna stick you up on stage at Tootsie's.
Never
Can I
gonna happen.
come? I'll be there in 4.5 hours.
There you go, Kimberly. We're gonna do this. We're taking JT singing on Broadway.
No, no, we're not.
We're going honky tonk Broadway here. We're not gonna put you up there. We're not gonna make you do Les Miserables. Come on, just do some karaoke. Come on, have you heard the karaoke on Broadway, JT?
No, because I won't go anywhere near a karaoke bar.
You would be better than anyone I've heard lately.
This is a real
All right.
thing.
All right, Hank, you're up. We're gonna let JT off the hook.
And then we're gonna get JT to sing.
Yeah.
Okay, I wrote mine down too. I was propositioned by Warren Beatty in the Watergate Hotel.
100%.
I said no. He was married.
100%.
He was married to Julie Christie at the time. When I worked for Rolling Stone magazine, I learned to breathe fire by inhaling lighter fluid and then lighting it on fire. And Hunter Thompson taught me how to do that.
I'll buy that. Yeah.
And I won my middle school's spelling bee because the guy who was my opponent misspelled the word alcohol.
Oh man. Warren Beatty, totally true.
100%.
Totally true.
That's got to be true.
Yeah.
Though Hank's been giving herself away with her logic. So the
True.
craziest thing is the Hunter S. Thompson. And if you got to blow fire with Hunter Thompson, I need to come and hear that whole story. 'Cause that sounds like fun.
Beginning and the end.
Yeah. Mm.
Oh.
I say the spelling bee's a lie.
I
Yeah,
think
me
me too. And I bet it's like something, it wasn't alcohol that he misspelled, but some other word or something. Close enough to the truth that it sounds like it's true,
Right.
but one little detail is off.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the spelling bee too.
Yeah.
All right. Hannah, did you place your bet?
The spelling bee as well. Yeah.
Spelling bee?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Hannah.
What are you saying?
I think I'm saying the middle school spelling bee, but it was not alcohol. It was just a different word.
And JT, what do you think?
Oh, same.
Oh, the same. Okay.
Breathing fire are totally Hank things to do.
I'm a terrible liar. I did not win the spelling bee. I lost the spelling bee because I couldn't spell alcohol. And every time I see that word, I think, oh, I knew how to spell that. 9, and it haunts me to this day. That's the word. So
I love it. All right.
the other two things are
Well, I want to hear the stories. I mean, because of course Warren Beatty hit on you. He'd be stupid not to.
because I was wearing a pink acid washed jean jacket and matching pink acid washed bell bottom jeans.
Oh,
So I
sexy.
was darn irresistible.
That's awesome.
Is there photographic evidence? We need to see the outfit.
Well, I wish. It was 1971. I think 1971-ish. So there weren't really pictures of anything. That's
Cheapest.
I would love to see that outfit. Absolutely, I would love to see it. And I want to see you breathing fire like that. Are there pictures of that at least?
No, nothing I ever did with Hunter Thompson. Are there any pictures of?
I love it.
That. I want to sit down. I want to hear that whole story.
I want to hear the rest of that story. And
we're in Loathing in Boston.
I love that. Okay, mine are not nearly as interesting as Hank's because I should have let her go last. And now for the, finale. It's so climactic here. All right, so here's mine. First one is, I learned how to walk when I was 5 months old. The second one, I spent a week at space camp in Huntsville, Alabama when I was in middle school. All this with middle school stories. And the third one, I was an athletic ambassador to Holland.
What's an athletic ambassador?
Someone who goes over to another country from the United States with special permission to do athletic courses, teach others, basically, to go kind of spread the sport.
Which sport?
Okay. The tie-in with Kimberly. There's a tie there, so that's true. That's true.
I didn't know that about Kimberly until before the show.
Walking at 5 months is so outrageously early
that it must be true.
It must be true. Yeah.
I vote for what was the middle school one again?
Space camp.
Space camp in Huntsville, Alabama.
Space camp is totally believable. I can see you at space camp. And Huntsville, you knew it was Huntsville, so you wouldn't just make that up.
I vote for space camp.
Is it a lie?
Mm-hmm.
I think the walking at 5 months.
Is that a doable thing, even physically?
I know. I just don't know if it's even physically possible.
Normally crawling at 6 months, but not.
I mean, I've never seen a 5-month-old walk, but I mean, maybe
anything can happen in the world of make-believe.
It's so outrageous that it must be true, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's because if you'd said 8 months, I would have thought, but 5, it's so outrageous that it must be true. I'm going to go with space camp as the lie because I don't.
What is the? Everybody's saying space camp.
Nola, Christine is saying, are you calling Nola a space?
Like Noah's.
I mean, it's not, I wouldn't take offense.
I'm sure you were a space captain, not a cadet. I'm going to go with the ambassador because I totally believe space camp, and I don't think you would make up the 5 months. That's too weird.
Everybody got an answer?
Yes.
So,
Tell
Tracy,
it.
were you space captain? Phillipi is space camp.
Yay!
I did not go to space camp. I love Star Trek and space, and I mean, I love that kind of stuff. I can really get down with a NASA documentary, but I did not go to space camp. I did live outside of Huntsville, Alabama for a while, but it was not until I was an adult. I was actually a DJ on a 100,000 watt classic rock radio station.
Wow.
So that's my only connection to Huntsville, Alabama, but I know they got the big rocket there and the Space Museum. I've been there. So I've been to the Space Museum in Huntsville, Alabama. I did not go to space camp. I did walk at 5 months. It was really weird. We have it on video. My dad was one of those that would like narrate like the old, like it was like the 8mm camera thing. And it was like really high tech then and very new. And he would narrate everything and he'd say, well, here she is. She's this many months old and she can do this, that, and the other. And I'm sitting on the floor in a little pair of blue jeans and a little red shirt playing with something. And she's 6 months old. And I popped up because I heard something in the kitchen and I walked into the kitchen. And Dad says, and she's been walking like that for about 2 weeks now.
Wow.
It looked like Chucky. Like, I mean,
All babies look like Chucky.
it was like, what the? It's like, nobody does that. It was like, it was actually alarming. And I was an athletic ambassador to Holland. My brother and I were, we were gymnastics ambassadors. And he was 10 years old. I was 12 and a half. And we went to spend a month with a Dutch family in a little bitty town. And we taught gymnastics all over the country. So we went with them and we went and held clinics. But it was a whole lot of fun. We lived with them for a month and they kind of just brought us to the different gymnastics clinics that we were doing. His gymnastics coach went over with us and we all had host families. And then that host family actually came to visit us in Louisiana about a year after that. And they kind of came and hung out and we toured them around, like they, took good care of us, and we stayed in touch with them for quite a long time. But yeah, so I lived in Holland for a month with my little brother and a Dutch family.
What town?
Nice.
I have to remember the name of it. I think it was Yemen. That doesn't sound right. Yemen is in the Middle East, but it was something like that. But that's late. I don't know. This is not wine. I promise. Maybe it should be, but it's not. But no, I don't still do gymnastics. I only show you this much because from here down is not a gymnast's body, Christine, but thank you. I had to give that up as the teenage years started coming and things started shifting out of balance. It was just a lot harder to stay on the balance beam. Things were too heavy one direction. But the athletic ambassador experience was really, really cool. Love that a lot. And yes, I was some freakish wind-up baby doll that just got up and walked away at 5 months. It's really weird. Really, really weird. But yeah, so that is our 2 truths and a lie. And of course, as expected, our authors were fantastic at it. And guys, as you are getting to know these folks, please take a moment, go to Amazon, go to Goodreads, go to your local bookshop, even if they're not open. You can order these things online, support them as well, not just the big guys, and make sure that you check out their books. They have many, many to choose from. Here's just a sampling. Please, please support our authors as they've taken an amazing night out of their time that they have. And just so you know kind of what's going on with me, Crescent City Sin is due to drop around Halloween. So if you have not read Crescent City Moon, then you will need to do that before grabbing your copy of Crescent City Sin, because one does pick up right where the other leaves off. So just in time for Halloween, we're going to take a walk on the gritty side of New Orleans, not just the dark side. We're getting real gritty in Crescent City Sin. So if you thought it was rough in Crescent City Moon, strap in, friend.
With all these, I've never been to.
I don't know about y'all, but I'm sold.
Yeah.
I know.
I've never been to. How do you pronounce it? New.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans. I've never
New
been
Orleans.
to New Orleans.
Yes.
And Bouchercon was supposed to happen this past August, but with
Mhm.
everything you've told me in the dungeon, all that creepy stuff, I'm kind of glad it didn't happen.
It's such a fun town. I mean, it's just such
Is
an
it, though?
amazing place.
Is it?
Yes.
It is.
Absolutely. I mean, I go back. I mean, I live here outside of Nashville, and I go back at least once a year. And I was supposed to go in the spring. And in fact, I canceled my trip as just coronavirus was ripping through that town. I mean, right at the last minute to do exactly what I'm going to do for fall break. But I was supposed to go over spring break. And it was probably one of the most painful things to actually do is to actually cancel those reservations because that town is so important to me. It does truly have a soul and you can feel it when you go down there. And, you may leave New Orleans, but New Orleans does not leave you. And that is truly how I feel about that town. It's an amazing place. It is like nowhere else on earth. And so even though there are some darker sides, some shadier sides, some dangerous sides, it's no different than any other big city, but it has all of those things with tremendous amounts of character. And so if you're going to have those things, you might as well have the character that goes with it. Not only that, but I mean, you can drink your way through the city and you won't notice any of it.
We'll protect you.
Yes.
We'll get that waiter to protect us.
Yes.
We'll start at Pat O'Brien's because clearly that's how you get out of trouble in New Orleans. There's something wrong with that. Starting at Pat O'Brien's drinking hurricanes is how you stay out of trouble in New Orleans. I don't know.
It's a good thing to do, though.
Hurricanes. Oh, man. Not the storms. Storms are sucky, but the drinks, God, you can put some hurricanes down. All right. I'm going to let you guys go, but thank you absolutely so much. Those of you who were commenting tonight, you've been a lot of fun. I know we didn't get all the comments on there, but we are reading them. I'll pop by into the various locations where we've been broadcasting live and follow up on some of those comments as well. But I want you guys to know how much we appreciate you hanging out with us. Those of you who are going to be watching this later on, I hope you enjoy the show as much as we have live. It's been a truly special night. Epic, I tell you. Epic is exactly how I knew it was going to be. So, ladies, it has been a true joy having you on the show. You're welcome back anytime. This has been a really, really special night. Thank you so much for sharing so much of your evening with us. We really do appreciate it.
Well, thank
You guys have a fantastic night.
Thank you.
You did great, Nola. That was fun. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.